So hi, I'm good, and I'm going to show you a couple of the methods of life recovery in Path of Exile. So the first one is life regeneration. It rolls on gear, mostly uses on gear, and you can also get off the tree. Like for instance, my character has 3.5% life regeneration, and I really didn't even go out of my way to grab any of it. It's just sort of on the path I took with this character. Fairly easy to get a decent amount of percent life regeneration, and even with 3.5% life regeneration, I get to 180 life regeneration a second. Decent amount. It's easier to get a lot, especially if you stack it. But the life regeneration rolls on gear are still sort of important, especially at lower levels. So at lower levels, the coral amulets and the of the newt life regeneration roll, which is let's see, this one, 1 to 2 life regeneration a second, is actually decently strong. But as you get to higher and higher levels, these rolls really don't get much better. The very top roll is 7 life recovery a second, and even if you roll that on 9 pieces of gear, that's 63 life recovery a second. And as it is a suffix, it takes up a slot which could have been used for, say, 45% resistances instead. Whereas 1% off the tree would have given you just as much as rolling it on every piece of gear. So fairly useless roll, especially in the late game. Life regeneration, percents always apply to the total amount of life pool you have. It doesn't account for your energy shield pool at all. The way you can actually make it account for energy shield is with Zealot's Oath, which applies your life recovery instead to your energy shield pool. So I have 180 energy shield if I got Zealot's Oath on this character. With my 3% life regeneration a second, I would get to about 6 energy shield recovery a second from regeneration. Not a very worthwhile trade for this character. The next one is life gain on hit, which also rolls on gear. So there's a life gain on hit gem, which is fairly strong, and a life gain on hit on gear, which is fairly weak. So life gain on hit, especially with quality, so level 20 with 20 quality, it's 54 life gain per enemy hit with attacks, and that rolls per hit. So the most common use of this is with the lightning arrow type builds that use lightning arrow, lesser multiple projectiles or greater multiple projectiles, and then chain. So lightning arrow hits once, it can hit up to 3 more times, so that's 4 hits, and then if you use LMP, that's 4 times 3, so it's 12 hits. And then there's chain, so those 12 hits are now being multiplied by 3 more, so that's 36 hits, and then that's multiplied by the life gain on hit gem, which can easily heal you for more than 500, 800 life per attack, especially if you hit at the right types of crowds where all those hits can actually proc. It's also really good at low levels, because I think it starts off with 6 life gain on hit, and if you're using something like cleave or ground slam early on, even if you're hitting a couple enemies, 30 life gain per attack actually is quite a bit, and it can make you pretty much immune to dying for up to about level 30-ish, I guess. It can pretty much save you. But especially in the late game, the life gain hit roll on gear tops out at 5, which means it's pretty much worthless, or it's not really. It's more worthwhile than the life regeneration roll you can get on gear, but it's still fairly weak. So if you got like 4 pieces of gear with this, that's 20 life gain hits if they were top rolls, and that's not even half as strong as the life gain hit gem by itself. So not that great to roll on gear. It's still not a very strong roll. But one of the interesting things is that life gain on hit and life gained on kill go through something called Ghost Reaver. So Ghost Reaver, Life Leech applies to energy shield instead of life. Life gained on hit and kill, they don't apply to Ghost Reaver. So if you did a hybrid type build with Ghost Reaver, you could still restore your life by using a life gain on hit, which is an interesting use of it, or by getting a life gained on kill. So it's an interesting way to restore your life without regen through like Ghost Reaver. So you could take, say, you could do a hybrid build which uses life and energy shield, take Zealot's Oath, take Ghost Reaver, and then restore your life with life gain on kill, and then life gain on hit. So besides that one specific use, life gained on kill is pretty much useless. The rolls in it are very low. As you can see, the top roll is 11 per kill, and if you rolled that on a couple pieces of gear, you know, you can get about 40, I guess. And then if you also rolled it on, what else? If you also got these nodes off the tree, there's 2 nodes in the Marauder section, which give you more life gained per kill. You can get to like 60, which seems kind of like a decent amount, but life gain on hit can restore 54 per attack. So you could just link some garbage attack like, I guess elemental hit was changed. But you know, previously I would have suggested a level 1 elemental hit, which used to have a 4 mana cost with a life gain on hit, and then you could just like spam some crap attack and restore your life that way. But you know, whatever. That was changed. The next form is percent life leech. So a percent of your damage is leeched back as life, which is probably the strongest form of leech. It's a lot stronger than life gain on hit, except for there's one little problem with it, and that's it's not instant. So life gain on hit is instant. There's no cap to it. You can hit a bajillion times per second, and you'll still leech all of that back with life gain on hit. But with life leech, you could do all those hits. You could do all that damage. You could blow up the world, for instance, and leech all that life back from, you know, killing everyone. But you're still capped by the leech rate on your character. So this character has 5,000 life, or 4,800 life specifically, but around 5,000 for easier calculations. You can only leech back 20% of your life pool per second. So this character would only be able to leech 1,000 life per second. That's the cap. I can't leech anymore. If you do leech more than that, it's applied to a buffer. So I could say have a buffer of 10,000 life leech, but I'm only going to draw 1,000 of that from the buffer per second. So for 10 seconds, I could be taking, you know, 1,000 damage a second, and I really wouldn't feel it because I'm continuously leeching from the buffer, even if I'm not doing any attacks. As soon as your life hits the full amount, it depletes the buffer, so the buffer goes away. So say I had 5,000 life, or like, I don't know, 8,000 life left in the life leech buffer, and then I leached back to 4,800 life. That buffer is instantly destroyed, and if I took another attack, I wouldn't be leeching any life back afterwards. So the way life leech, or I don't know, I guess it's gonna be a little bit confusing to get into, but I guess I'll cover the rest of life leech first. So life leech is a percent of your damage, but you can also get percent life leech off of gear, and you can replace the gem with attack-based builds if you do a lot of physical damage. So I have 3% physical damage life leech on my amulet, 2% from Calm Sign, and I have 2% from the Blood Drinker node off the passive skill tree. Because of that, I get to 7% life leech per life leech on attacks with physical damage. Because I do mostly physical damage, it's pretty much enough to completely replace the gem, which caps out around 8%. So, where am I going with this? Anyways, I don't have to use the gem because I use physical damage attacks. The problem is that it only applies to physical damage attacks. So if you don't use attacks, like say you use Ethereal Knives, which is a spell, that form of leech doesn't apply. Say I use elemental attacks, that form of leech doesn't apply. Say I use, what else? Just spells, like Freezing Pulse for instance, none of that leech would ever apply. And the only way to get leech in those scenarios, like elemental damage on attacks, spells, is to use the life leech gem, which always restores life, regardless of what the damage is and where it came from. You don't get life leech from degeneration effects. That's one of the caveats. So say puncture, or like using righteous fire, or viper strike for instance, no way to leech from degenerations, but you also can't take reflect damage from regenerations, but reflect is like another episode, I guess. So as I said, life leech has a cap. It's 20% of your life a second. If you get quality on the gem, you can get a little bit more than that. But one of the ways to override the cap is to get Vol Pact. So Life Leech applies instantly, but you don't get any life regeneration, and all your life flasks do nothing. So that's a pretty harsh downside until you kind of consider what Vol Pact allows you to do. So say I stacked Leech to the sky, say I had like a 100% Leech, say I got Leech on everything imaginable and used like Carnage Heart, say I had the Life Leech Gem as well, so I had like 8% from that, a Carnage Heart for like 10%, I was using Claws, along with the Claw Nodes for like 15% more. And then I had like 2% on all the rings and like 2% on gloves. Like, I don't know, I can get like 35, 40% life leech or so. And if I did around like 5,000, 6,000 DPS, it doesn't seem like that much, but if I did about that much, and I'm leeching a third of that, that's 2,000 life a second. And that's leech that happens irregardless of the life pool or the energy shield pool of the character. So I could have 1,000 life and I would still leech all of that back at the same rate with Vol Pact. So the most common use of Vol Pact is to protect against Reflect, but you can also use it as a form of defense with just the massive amount of life recovery you can garner from it. Most commonly, Vol Pact is taken with Chaos Inoculation, because Chaos Inoculation removes your life pool, so you don't care about your life pool. So the downsides of it, like life regeneration, you don't really care about life regeneration with CI, and you don't really care about life recovery with Flasks with CI because you have your energy shield pool, and after a while out of combat, it recovers anyways, so you don't really care about those. So you're usually taken with CI. You can take it with life, but it's pretty goofy to do that. One of the skills that really enabled Vol Pact with life-based builds was in 1.0.0, they changed how a skill called Devouring Totem worked, and they pretty much doubled or tripled its effectiveness. So you could actually use it now, and it could actually heal you, whereas before it was kind of like just this joke mechanism. And yeah, so you can kind of do life-based Vol Pact builds. A little bit goofy, a little bit dangerous, but they're possible to do. But most commonly, it's used to protect against Reflect, because the Leech applies instantly, and I'll get into Reflect in a different episode. It's outside the scope of this one. So the last form of recovery is Flasks. But Flasks have a lot of mods, and they have a lot of different types of things you can get with them. So for instance, I have a couple Flasks. I have a Bubbling Flask that removes bleeding. I have a Seething Flask, which removes chill and freeze. I have a Quicksilver Flask. I got Granite Flask. I have a Seething Hollowed Flask. And that's enough for like a whole another episode, so I'll see you next time for Flasks.